These two players, Thug Lightyears and Chuck Money, joined the same rally at the same time, but one of them has more dead troops than the other. What the heck is going on? They're both T5 cavalry. In this video, we're going to unpack exactly how special units influence combat when you're in a rally. Some of this is a little tricky to figure out, but I think we've got most of it nailed. So stick around in this video to start getting better trades today. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, a sponsored content creator for Rise of Kingdoms, and you would not believe my surprise when we learned that having a different special unit in the rally could literally mean you have more or less dead troops than another player who's in the exact same rally with you, with the exact same tier of troop. So in this video, we're going to walk through everything we've figured out about how special units influence combat when they join a rally, and this will be really important for influencing literally how many dead troops you get. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, then do me a huge favor. Smash that subscribe button for those daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. This style of video where we're testing takes a good bit longer to make, so if you could smash that like button, it really would help out a lot. There are, of course, special units in Rise of Kingdoms, and we'll start just by very briefly talking about a little bit of what those special units do. We'll then get right into the testing that we did and the conclusions, and we'll have timestamps in the description so you can jump to whichever part of this video you're most interested in. What I'll first do is just flash up onto the screen a few charts showcasing the stats of special units, and we've covered this very in-depth in a previous video we did talking about the best special units in Rise of Kingdoms, and at the time, I hypothesized that one of the best special units you could have would be a civilization like France, because it's all in on the special stats you get from that special unit toward health. These special units, they don't give a ton of extra boost, but they are better than their base unit counterparts. In other words, if you're battling against someone who doesn't have a special unit, the special unit is a good bit better. So, how exactly do health, defense, and attack influence the equation here? You see, I thought that because health is the lowest stat you will always have, at least at this point in the game, you will get more benefit by having more health. That is simply a function of diminishing returns of stats, and we've proven that's how stats work in this game. In a previous video, I'll have a card up in the top. Because in the war technology, there's no health here, but there is lots of attack and defense for every unit type, that means health is always going to be the lowest stat, and so at the time of my previous video, I said, hey, look, if you get a special unit with health, it's probably going to be better. But recently, we learned that health is working in a way that is really interesting for you. We went and we ran some tests to prove exactly how this would go. And our methodology was to go into an Ark of Osiris match and to bring all the different special units for infantry and see how do they perform. We've got one with defense, we've got one with health, and we've got one that's got attack. Those civilizations that we're using, by the way, are Rome for the defense, it is France for the health, and it is going to, of course, be Japan for the attack stat. So we ran rallies using none other than City Keeper and Dragon Lancer to remove literally all randomness. If you run the exact same rally twice with these commanders, and we've got no talents on any of these commanders, you will get literally the exact same result 2 times in a row. So to illustrate that, we ran this rally once where we brought each of the special troops and some of the base level troops. That is 200,000 troops total. We battled against the Dragon Lancer. They're using T5, but it doesn't really matter what they're using because they're going to bring the same thing literally every time. And when we ran this exact same battle in the exact same configuration, we got the exact same result, which is exactly what we would expect, and I wanted to prove to you that the approach we took here would in fact get consistent results. This means that the conclusions we're drawing from this testing is not due to randomness. This is how the game works. So the first thing we did is we tried to prove that health was the better stat. So we ran a rally, and I just wanted to see if I have half units that are health and half units that are just the base units, do we get a result where if you have more health, you lose less troops? And to our surprise, Leonidas, who's using France, lost more troops. Now, this got me confused. We lost the rally, and we lost more troops. So I took a look into the battle log, and here is exactly what's happening. If we look at the report, you can see that actually he is going to lose slightly less units. So Leonidas is losing 437 units, and I'm losing 460 units toward the start of the fight. But when we get toward the end of the fight, he is going to have the majority of the remaining units. That also, coincidentally, is when the worst trades happen. In other words, you lose the most and get the most sev wounds when you are lowest relative to the strength of your opponent. The less troops you have relative to theirs, the worse the trades typically are. And so you can see at the end of the report, I'm losing only 185 units and he's losing 221 units because he's got a majority of the units toward the end of the battle, or at least more of them by proportion. He actually ends up losing more units overall in the report for sev wounds. This would translate, by the way, directly to a rally in KVK where he would have more dead troops. So having the unit with health was actually worse. That was shocking to me because his units lasted longer. Now, I'm not talking about every player having more health. No, that's different. We're talking about a special unit that has health. You always want to have more stats, and more health is generally very, very good. But in this case, the special unit caused him to lose more rather than less. How much more? I mean, okay, maybe it's not a ton more. He lost 15,000. I lost 14,600. He lost 400 more. But if we looked at another report, I wanted to see if we could repeat this in a winning rally situation. Theoretically, we should see the opposite situation, where if we're using all of those units that have extra health, as you can see here, he should lose less units because he's losing less toward the start of the fight, and boom, that is exactly what happened. Leonidas loses less total units in this shorter fight where we had the defense bring significantly less troops, and we won. So what's the takeaway for this? If you have a special unit that has health, and your rally leaders are responsible, in other words, they're going to cancel rallies when they're starting to go bad, then in general, you're going to lose less troops. Literally, you will have more troops after participating in rallies than someone else who does not have a special unit with health. You want more troops? Health is the way to go. Now, the funny thing about that, however, is that if you're rally leaders or you're in garrison situations where you're getting completely wrecked down to zero or they're not getting reinforced properly, in those situations, you're actually going to have probably more losses than you would otherwise. That he actually ended up getting more kills in general, too, for long-running fights because he had more troops in the fight for longer, so he was getting more kills, which is pretty funny. We'll have all the kills up on the screen toward the end of the video. The next thing I want to just show you, however, is the same report we did at the start. So we battled here with a blend of all the different troop types, okay? And that's 200,000 troops for us, 200,000 troops for them. We lost 29,081. They lost 16,894. When we brought all health, we actually lost more, but so did they. So everybody actually lost more troops because our troops stayed in the fight longer. Specifically, those troops with more health were in here longer. And so the fight was actually longer, which is kind of interesting. When we switched things up and we were using a different troop, in this case, we're using defense, the total number of troops lost got better. That's 28,952 to 16,708. And when we switched things over to attack, the fight ended faster. However, we lost slightly more troops than when we had defense as the special unit. You can see that right over here. There are those samurais, and we've got slightly more losses here. Let's actually put all the results up on the screen and talk about these real quick. In the very first battle where we had 50k of each unit type, that's 50k of the neutral, 50k that have health, 50k that have more defense, 50k that have more attack, we actually got the best result out of all of these, and I would argue that's just because we had more special units overall. So yes, having more special units is obviously better, and I measure that in terms of the ratio of every unit they lose. How many units do I lose? The higher this number is, the worse it is. So the ratio of 1.721 is a slightly better ratio than the other fights. With the health and the defense, the ratio was actually still the same, and the length of the fight for the two of them was even. However, in the situation where one player had health, they will actually bear more of the losses than in the situation where the player has defense. That is because they have literally more of their troops dying relative to the other player. Now, that is true in a losing situation. In a winning situation, you would have less of your troops die. When we look at the version where we had attack, that's 100,000 samurais, the fight actually went faster, but we got a slightly worse trade. So attack will get you to an outcome more quickly, but it might come at the cost of a very slight amount of efficiency. We'll also put up on the screen the total number of kills that each player received when they were doing this. And I think this is also interesting to look at because by virtue of having more health, you actually do end up getting a good bit more kills just because you have more troops in the fight for longer, which means you get more kills. You would have expected that perhaps having just tons of attack would be the way to get the most kills. That's not necessarily going to be the case, although a special unit that has attack will certainly do very well. This leads us to the practical conclusions and recommendations. What does this actually change about the civilization that I'm going to pick when I'm in KVK? And I'll be perfectly honest, it's not going to change very much for me. As a rally leader or garrison captain, I'm still going to pick whatever civilization I need for rallies or garrison. So for me, if I'm rallying archers, I'm just going to go with the Ottoman Empire. That feels like the best choice. Or if I'm going to be rallying with cavalry, Arabia is the right choice. If I'm going to be rallying with infantry, here we have some interesting choices actually between France and also Rome. I would argue that Rome is giving you more stats. 2% more stats is probably slightly better. I honestly could see an argument being made for either of these civilizations in a KVK situation. If you think you're going to be doing a ton of healing, then obviously France is a really great choice. But if you like the march speed, which is great in Osiris and really good in the open field, then Rome is also fine, and directionally they're going to be very, very similar. The same is of course going to be true for infantry when it comes to garrison choices. And I'll add that, okay, technically, in a game mode like Ark of Osiris, where you want the fight to last as long as possible, we can't really, or at least I didn't see much of a difference between France and Rome in terms of their performance. You don't particularly care one way or another whether or not you're losing more troops in your garrison relative to your teammates. That's really not as important. Both health and defense as a special stat will make the fight run longer, just like how, by the way, attack would make the fight run a good bit faster using a civilization like Japan. But would I recommend Japan? I probably wouldn't in KVK because, okay, 3% troop attack is nice. The samurai special unit is nice. But the other bonuses, I don't know. I feel like you're much better off with the other infantry civilizations if I'm being perfectly honest here. So again, does this majorly influence your choice of a civilization? I don't think so. But technically, if your kingdom knows how to run their rallies really, really well, then using the civilization that's got a lot of health, like France or going with Germany, the special unit that's got a lot of health, actually, you could lose less troops and you might last a good bit longer. If you enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. And check out those cards we shared earlier by tapping the info button so you can see all of these other videos that we did about attack, defense, and health, and the crucial role that they play in Rise of Kingdoms. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom, and leave a comment down below if you knew about this or if this was a surprise.